This is an essay written by Joshua Hoffman, the founder of Future of Jewish.
In the months since October 7th, the global conversation about Israel has grown increasingly absurd. The vocabulary used to describe the world's only Jewish state has become a kind of code, a way for people to signal moral superiority while masking deep prejudice. The same tired phrases are repeated endlessly. On the surface, each sounds neutral or reasonable. In reality, they reflect one of the oldest biases in human history: the belief that Jews must forever justify their existence. It's time to retire all of these phrases. Number 1. Israel has a right to exist. Israel's existence is not a matter of opinion. It's a fact. The phrase Israel has a right to exist suggests that the Jewish people must continually petition the world for permission to live in their own homeland, as though our legitimacy depends on the goodwill of others. No one says Japan has a right to exist or France has a right to exist. They simply exist. Israel's legitimacy was not conferred by the United Nations or by foreign powers. It is rooted in thousands of years of history, culture, and faith. The Jewish people returned home, rebuilt their language, restored their land, and revived their sovereignty. That is what defines Israel's existence, not the approval of anyone else. To say Israel has a right to exist is to imply that it might not. That question was settled once and for all in 1948. As the great Zionist leader and then Israeli Prime Minister Menachem Begin told a young U.S. Senator named Joe Biden in 1982, quote, "Don't threaten us with cutting off your aid. It will not work. I am not a Jew with trembling knees. I am a proud Jew with 3,700 years of civilized history. Nobody came to our aid when we were dying in the gas chambers and ovens. Nobody came to our aid when we were striving to create our country. We paid for it. We fought for it. We died for it. We will stand by our principles. We will defend them. And when necessary, we will die for them again, with or without your aid." Number 2. Israel has a right to defend itself. This one is even more absurd. Of course, Israel has a right to defend itself, like every nation on earth. When any other country faces terror, no one demands that it justify its response. When the U.S. was attacked on September 11th, no one questioned whether it had the right to act. But when Jews defend themselves, suddenly the world discovers nuance. Suddenly, self-defense becomes disproportionate. The problem isn't that people question Israeli military tactics. It's that they question Jewish self-protection itself. The underlying assumption is that Jewish vulnerability is noble, but Jewish power is dangerous. That is not morality. That's a recycled prejudice. If you have a problem with Jewish power, then you have a problem with Jews. And if you have a problem with Jews, then you are an anti-Semite. Number 3. Israel's far-right government. Western media loves to reflexively label Israel's elected government far-right whenever it gets the chance to. It's a phrase not of analysis, but of condescension. We don't refer to Germany's government as the centrist government, or Canada's as the left-leaning coalition. In functioning democracies, we simply say the elected government. The Israeli government, too, is the elected government. Calling it far-right is not a description, it's an accusation. It implies that Israelis who vote conservative are morally suspect or politically extreme, even though they live under existential threat and vote accordingly. It's a way of saying, we would make better choices if we were you. Actually, Israel is one of the few model societies in today's world. While many parts of Europe collapse and while America, Canada, and Australia are starting to disintegrate, Israel continues to churn out a society rich in family values, national service, hard work, love of the land, democracy, international travel, education, the most college degrees per capita, culture, the most museums per capita, and innovation, the most startups per capita. Labeling Israel's government far-right is not journalism or political critique. It's arrogance, masquerading as moral concern. Number 4. Anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism are two different things. No, they are not. Anti-Zionism is the modern mutation of anti-Semitism. It targets the Jewish collective rather than the Jewish individual. But the logic is the same. Jews are fine until they have power. For centuries, anti-Semites denied Jews equality in their societies and among the nations. Today, anti-Zionists deny Jews nationhood among nations. The vocabulary changes, the hatred does not. To hate Zionism is to hate the Jewish people's right to self-determination. You cannot separate Judaism from Israel, any more than you can separate Catholicism from Rome or Islam from Mecca. Israel is not a foreign project. It is the living center of Jewish civilization. Anti-Zionists pretend they are opposing a political ideology. In truth, they are opposing Jewish continuity. Anyone who tells you otherwise is either a flaming moron or a Jew hater. 5. The conflict. Even the most neutral-sounding phrase conceals bias. The conflict implies two equal sides, locked in a tragic misunderstanding, a quarrel between neighbors. But that framing is false. There is no symmetrical conflict between a democratic state that values life and a terror society that glorifies death. One side builds bomb shelters to protect its civilians. The other hides rockets beneath hospitals. One side educates its children for peace. The other indoctrinates them with martyrdom. Calling it the conflict flattens moral distinctions and turns an ongoing campaign against Jewish survival into a polite diplomatic abstraction. It makes the aggressor and the defender sound interchangeable. The phrase is not neutral. It is anesthetic. Number 6, the occupation. Occupation has become one of the most weaponized words in the modern lexicon. It's used not to describe geography, but to erase history. In every other context, occupation means conquest, one nation ruling over a foreign people. But when Jews live in Judea and Samaria, the very cradle of Jewish civilization, it's called occupation. When Arabs live there, they're called indigenous. This inversion of language is deliberate. It's meant to turn the return of a people to their homeland into a moral crime. But the Jewish connection to that land predates Islam, Christianity, and the Roman Empire. You cannot occupy your own home. To call it occupied territory is to deny Jewish belonging, to treat Jewish presence as an intrusion. That's not a political description. It's a linguistic form of deliberate erasure. The phrase "the occupation" entered mainstream discourse after Israel's victory in the 1967 Six-Day War, when Israel captured the West Bank, then controlled by Jordan, Gaza Strip, then controlled by Egypt, East Jerusalem, the Golan Heights, and the Sinai Peninsula. That is not occupation. It's victory in a war that the Arabs waged against Israel, again. Only the Jews are expected to win defensive wars and then resort to the pre-war status quo, as if nothing happened. Every other nation that wins a defensive war is allowed to secure its borders, set new terms, and protect its citizens. But when Israel wins, when Jews refuse to die quietly, the world calls it occupation. It's as if Jewish survival itself is treated as an overreach. Then, in the 1990s, the so-called peace process reintroduced the occupation into every diplomatic conversation as its central grievance. The phrase now functioned as a moral baseline. Even those who supported Israel reflexively used the occupation to describe the territories, accepting its implied illegitimacy. But here's the inconvenient fact that many people conveniently forget. The Palestinians had a chance to found their own state in 2000, and then Palestinian leader Yasser Arafat walked away from the negotiating table and ignited the Second Intifada, resulting in more than 1,000 mostly civilian Israeli deaths. Israelis' resolve understandably hardened and they moved on. The Palestinians haven't, as if they can continue to murder Jews and pretend like it's no big deal. Yeah, right. And number 7, the peace process. Once this phrase carried genuine hope, now it's a ritual incantation, a tired mantra repeated by diplomats who no longer believe it themselves. The peace process has become a process without peace. Israel has made offer after offer, withdrawn from territory, dismantled settlements, even handed over entire regions, only to be met with rampant terrorism, rocket fire indiscriminately aimed at population centers, and outright rejection. Peace is not produced by process, it's produced by partners, and Israel does not have one. The Palestinian leadership has never accepted a permanent Jewish state of any size. Their strategy is not negotiation, it's attrition. To continue invoking the peace process is to cling to a fantasy that flatters diplomats and blames Israel for a failure it did not create. It's time to retire this phrase and confront reality. Peace requires reciprocity, not repetition. Every one of these phrases operates within a framework of conditional legitimacy. Jews may exist, but only if they behave as others demand. Israel may defend itself, but only if it bleeds first. Its government may govern, but only if foreigners approve. Its peace must be negotiated, but only on someone else's terms. This is not equality. It is paternalism. It's a worldview that treats Jewish self-determination as an experiment that must constantly be supervised and morally graded. For 2,000 years, Jews were told what they were allowed to be. When powerless, we were pitied. When powerful, we are feared. In exile, we were accused of being disloyal. In sovereignty, of being oppressive. The vocabulary changes, but the logic endures. The Jewish people have outlasted every empire that presumed to define them. Babylon fell, Rome fell. So did the inquisitors, the czars, the Nazis, and so will the Red-Green Alliance. Every empire that tried to define us is now a museum exhibit. Israel is alive. Hebrew is alive. The Jewish story is alive. And that, more than anything, is what many people still can't forgive. They keep speaking as if they hold a veto on Jewish existence. They don't. Our covenant was never with the nations. It was with history itself, with the desert that bloomed, with the prophets who dreamed, and with the generations who refused to disappear. Israel does not exist because the world allowed it. It exists because the Jewish people willed it. Again, after everything. Our right to this land is not contingent, not conditional, and not up for debate. It is ancestral, eternal, and earned.